Okay, good afternoon and welcome to Shiva YouTube Table Enabled. Today we're finishing this week Siman Kuf Ayin 170. It's a long Siman, but not that long because the halachas are pretty short. Divrei Musar Shiyanag Adam Basuda. A person should have certain types of etiquette during a meal. We're going to see from some of these halachas that I don't think you can take these halachas on the simple push-up shot level, even though they're recorded. Most of them are from Derech Eretz Zuta, which is a separate Masechta, not part of the regular Shas. Um, hard. These laws really don't make so much sense. I'll try to put it in a good context where it might make sense. It's possible that you could make sense of these laws if you put it in the right context. I will tell you what I'm thinking about. I can't guarantee you that's the right shot, but most of these halachas shouldn't be applicable to everyday life because they're intolerable and they wouldn't lead to a healthy life if you actually follow these halachas during a meal. Let's start. You can't talk during a meal. It's a Gemara in Tainus. Shema yaktim kana levesha, because your right, your trachea, right. Normally, when you eat, you have two. You have a food pipe and a windpipe. People are familiar with biology. You have esophagus, and trachea. The trachea is your windpipe. There's something called the epiglottis, which covers your trachea, which prevents the food from going in there, which leads you to choke. So that's why one of the reasons on Pesach, you're supposed to lean to the left, not lean to the right. Not supposed to talk, because when you talk, also the windpipe becomes uncovered, and maybe food will go down that poops. It's a pipe, so it's sakana. Now, practically, you got any meal, any Shabbos meal, any meal, people sit down to eat more than one person. They're gonna talk. There's 99% of meals people are talking. If they're not talking, it means they're probably very angry at each other. So to say you shouldn't be talking at a meal is, it's either everyone in the world is violating this halacha, or this halacha is not talking about a regular meal. I'd like to believe it's the latter. Um, Basuda, people do talk, and so we have to come up with some extra explanation of why this halacha is brought down. I feel even someone who sneezes, Basuda Asher Lama La Susa, you can't even talk to say God bless you, right? They were sitting at a meal together. One person went to urinate. No tel yado achas shif ba. Right? We learned when you go to urinate, you're supposed to clean your shoes off, right? If there's drops of urine on your shoes, because people think that you're not able to have an arch when you urinate, and therefore when you're together with your wife, you can't form your zera is not yorek echetz. It doesn't shoot out like an arrow, and therefore you can't have children like that. The Gemara says you can't impregnate a woman if your zera is not like that. So people are going to say that your children are not your children, and there's no other man. So you have to wipe off your shoe. It means touching your shoe. Touching your shoe, like we learned in the beginning of Orachayim, you have to wash your hand. You have to clean off your hand if you're going to eat. You have to actually wash his hand in front of everybody. People shouldn't think that you didn't wash your hand. If he didn't touch his shoes, you don't have to wash. As he touched a sweaty part of his body. If he defecated, then he for sure needs to do Netilas Yadayim, like we learned in Hilchos Netilas Yadayim. How do you do lishtos? Again, this halacha of wiping your hand or washing your hand in front of everybody, this is only if you want to drink. If you're going to go back to the meal and eat, right, if you plan on drinking, so you have to wash one hand in front of everybody. If you're planning on going back to eat, everybody knows probably, people know if you defecate, you feel unclean unless you wash your hands. Person his mind becomes a little crazy. They wouldn't eat without washing his hands. Let's say he takes a walk with his friends. They go outside in the middle of the meal. Like learned in the last in Hilchos Netilas Yadayim, if you're in the middle of your meal and you take a long walk outside, so that's a hesach hadas. I'm not sure it's like an hour. It has to be an hour walk. Some people say 15 minutes. So therefore, you forgot about keeping your hands washed. So if it's a bread meal, you have to rewash your hands and make a new bracha. it's only talking about if you're in a meal, a bread meal, right? Because the reason you need Tilas Yadayim, you don't normally use Tilas Yadayim to wash your hands if you come to drink, even drinking wine. But if you're at a meal where you're drinking and eating, so even if you say I'm only going to drink, you might come to eat. So therefore, you have to do Tilas Yadayim. If you're only friends here at the bar and you're drinking, you don't have to do Tilas Yadayim. Two people, they're eating together apparently from the same bowl of food. They're eating together. Let's imagine like a bowl of chips or something like that. Let's talk about tortilla chips. You're watching the football game. You're watching your Super Bowl. My prediction, I would say Bills, Eagles? Yeah, Bills, Eagles. I'd probably assume Bills, Eagles. I think the Bills are going to win. Josh Allen is better quarterback than Jalen Hurts by far. And they might even have better defense. The Bills. So you're sitting at your big, grand Super Bowl party, and you're both eating from the chips, of course. And you're dipping it in salsa. So one person, while he's taking from the tortilla chips, he wants to drink also. He's got his beer there. He's got his Stella Artois beer, the best beer. He's got his Stella Artois beer. So you have to wait for him. You can't take all the chips for yourself. Until wait till your friend finishes with his beer. And then you go back to enjoying the chips together. If there's three people, right? Three people eating from the bowl of chips. Of course, no one's double dipping. George Costanza would not have it, have any of it. Right? You don't have to wait. One person's drinking. Two people are the rove. You don't have to wait. They can just continue eating the chips. When you're eating from a bowl of chips, you have to leave over a little bit. Pay in your field. Leave over a corner of your field for the poor person. You have to leave over for a little bit for the butler, the waiter. If the waiter is pouring, let's say he has steaming food, it's coming from a frying pan, he's going to put it in the bowl. Maybe he made some latkes, like Hanukkah. He doesn't have to leave over for himself a little bit, because that's not normal. It's normal to keep a little bit in the main serving plate, but not in the frying pan. Again, one of these halachas that makes no sense. You can't look at your friend when you're eating. You should look at the guy. Literally, actually, the first halacha about not talking, it actually occurred to me once. I was sitting, I remember when I was young, I was like 22 or 23 years old. I was sitting at breakfast in a yeshiva, from yeshiva. A lot of them, people learn these halachas. I think I was learning these halachas at that point. And somebody else was sitting there, and I started talking to him, breakfast, yeshiva, before the morning, eating cornflakes or something like that. I mean, he was eating cornflakes. Maybe I was eating bread. I don't remember. I started saying, hey, hello, what's your name? I don't think I met the guy. I think he was a new guy. He didn't talk. He just stared at me. He seemed a little perturbed that I was talking to him. I kept on trying to talk to him. Eventually, I gave up. He felt, literally, you can't talk during a meal, like the Gemara said in Halacha Aleph. And I've actually seen people also, this Halacha Daled, they won't look at you. I've seen some people that when I'm eating with them, they don't look at me while I'm eating because it's embarrassing that someone looks at you while you're eating. Now, I can see maybe you're on a date with a girl. Girls are embarrassed of eating in front of men that are not their husbands. Once you marry them, they eat like more than the husband sometimes. But when they're on a date, they barely touch their food. It's embarrassing for them. But two friends eating together, I don't think anyone's really embarrassed. Look, someone looking at you while you eat. Normal people. Hey, Nichnas Labayas, Kolmash Yomer Labalabayas Yasa. This is a Gemara in Maseches Derech Eretz. You go into someone's house. Anything he says to you, you do. I think the Gemara in Pesachim says Chutz Mitzvah, except for leaving. Right? He tells you to leave, you don't listen to him. It's kind of crazy. You would think the opposite. You would say, right? If he tells you to leave, it's his house. He can tell you to leave, but he has no control to tell you what to do when he's in your house. I would say the opposite. It's a weird halacha, right? Right? It should be like, Kol Mash Balabais, don't do. Listen, do what you want. He's inviting you over to his house. Do whatever you want. If he tells you to leave, you got to leave. It's his house. Hard to understand, a lot of different explanations. Chutz mitzveh, what that means. Vav, Oh yeah, Adam Kaptan, a person shouldn't be angry. Perish Kastan or Ragzam also. Don't get angry during a meal. I will give you, I'm not going to tell you what I think this whole simon is talking about, most of the simon is talking about. Now, to say the whole simon is talking about what I'm going to tell you it's talking about is hard because a lot of these halachas are from different places. Some are from the Gemara, some are from Derech Eretz, some are from the Rishonim. So not all of them. I think some of them actually make sense to apply at a regular meal, but a lot of them, I'm going to tell you where I think they apply. But you can have to listen to Ian, to Leon, where I tell you what type of meal we're talking about. Zion, adam prusta kebetza v'machal reza gargon. You can't eat something the size of a kebetza. Kebetza is 2 gezesim. So if you think about matzah, right? You have to eat 2 gezesim of matzah. You got to take one of those matzahs and eat like 2/3 of it or something, according to some poskim. Technically, really not, but so imagine stuffing 2/3 of a big shmura matzah in your mouth. You shouldn't do that. I don't know how many people can fit 2/3 of a shmura matzah in their mouth. Machal reza gargon. You're considered to be a glutton. I don't know if it's possible. So you shouldn't drink your cup in one gulp. It's finished now. I just drank the whole thing. This entire 12-ounce cup. Name Shasa. Hareza Gargaron. You're considered a glutton. Shnayim. If you drink it in 2 sips, Derech Eretz. That's the way to do it. That's having good Derech Eretz. That's being worldly knowledge. Shlosha Hareza Nagas Eruach. If you take 3 sips, that's arrogant. So you got to drink your cup in 2 sips. And literally, I've asked Poskim, or Posik, the Posik that I always used to ask my Rosh Hashiva, Yaakov Friedman, about this halacha many times. And he showed me personally how you drink a cup. And he did this, It's nice to see when a Posik actually follows their own advice or their interpretation of the halacha. He says you take a glass, you go, and you can't, also I think the halacha is you can't stop in the middle. You can't go like that and then finish it like that. The reason you can't do that is because you have to drink a revius. You have to drink a revius in order to be chayiv in a bracha. You have to drink a revius, which is like 3.3 ounces. According to some poskim, you have to drink it in, like 1 sip. So what you do is you go like this, meaning you don't lift your mouth from the cup. You take half of the 2 sips and then lift the cup a little bit, so your mouth is still over the lid of the cup, but you're not drinking from it, and then take the second sip. So therefore, you can say a bracha achrona like that, and therefore you follow the halacha of taking 2 sips. If you take 3 sips, then you're someone who's arrogant. It got to the point where I asked him, it's not used to go on dates, what do you get? I get a bottle of water. Sometimes the bottles of water, it's not proper. I mean, I didn't feel it's, you take a bottle of water, Poland Spring water, I mean, most people just drink from the bottle, but if you got a cup, you can get a cup. It's more elegant to get a cup. Some people have a straw, so I think one time I had a straw. I got straws from me and my date, and it happened a couple times. And the first time I didn't know if I have to finish the entire bottle in 2 sips, even with the straw. And maybe you can finish a bottle of 20 ounces of Poland Spring water in 2 sips without a straw, or you pour in a cup. But to finish, so he said, yeah, you got to drink, or he said at least a revius, which is 3.3 ounces, in 2 sips from your straw. It didn't make any sense to me. I mean, drinking from a straw is not the same thing as drinking from a cup. And I think one time I did it and I wasn't sure, and the whole date I'm trying to drink from the straw to make sure I could say a bracha achrona. And then the girl didn't go out again with me. Haga, the Ramah says, Miu, kos katan moed, mutal ishtosa b'basachas. If it's a small cup, you have a shot glass, you don't have to drink it in 2 sips. You'd be a man, drink it in 1 sip. If it's really big, that's the problem. You don't know how really big. It's 20 ounces is really big. I don't know. It's a really big cup. So then it's okay 3 or 4 times, but 5 times not. I don't know. If you have a piece of garlic, a head of garlic, or an onion, don't bite out of it from the top. Elam olav, rip off pieces. Take v'imachal hareza ravsan. You consider someone who's very hungry if you eat it from the top of the garlic or the top of the onion. Hagavalo, I think any vegetable, if you take a bite from the head of lettuce from the top, I think it's also kind of a ravsan. I don't know why only these 2 things. two things. Haga v'lo yochel derech ravtzonos. You shouldn't eat in a way that demonstrates that you're very hungry. Also, you can't do. I've seen some people do this. Sorry, from people they take a rugelach instead of putting the rugelach in their mouth. They take it. They hold the rugelach. They take a piece off. They put it in their mouth. So the Rama says, don't do that because you're not normal. People do that to avoid taiva. They think it's too much desire for food. If you eat a rugelach normal, you don't have to pull a piece from it. You can put the entire thing in your mouth and bite. Yud. You shouldn't bite a piece, whatever you're eating, and leave the uneaten piece on the table, preferably usually on a plate. You shouldn't drink two cups, one right after the other in your meal. At the end of your meal, you finish it off by drinking 2 cups of water, 2 cups of wine. That's also someone who's considered with bad midos. It's considered to be a gargaron, a gluttonous person. Two people are sitting at a meal. A gadol poshet yado tchila. The more important person, right? They pass around the bowl of cholent. The more important person gets the cholent first. If a poor person is more important at the meal than you, and you take the serving plate first, you're considered to be a glutton. You'd give you go into someone's house, you don't say, give me some food. You have to wait till they give it to you. That makes a lot of sense to me. If you went to someone's house, you shouldn't say, right, you feel bad that he was invited, you ate his food. He said, come to my house and I'll feed you, I'll repay you, I'll feed you back what you fed me. It looks like, right, the fact that you ate from him is like you borrowed money from him, you borrowed food from him. There's a concern, maybe you're going to give him more when he comes over to your house as ribbis. If you do at the beginning, you say, I'll come to you and you'll come to me next time, that doesn't look ribbis. And you could even invite him to your house and have a bigger meal, because as long as you stipulate in the beginning, it doesn't look like ribbis. If you have a piece of bread, right, you bit into a piece of bread, you shouldn't put on the kara bowl, a bowl of soup, let's say. Some people do this. They finish their soup, they take their challah and they piece of bread and they wipe the bowl. They like to dip their challah or their bread in the remnants of their soup. That you could do. You shouldn't take breadcrumbs, right? Some people do this. I've seen this, at Shabbos meals, various interesting Shabbos meals I've been to. People cut up the challah and then they have the crumbs or something like that. Apparently, there's special kedusha according to the Zohar with these crumbs. I don't know. They eat them or they put it next to them. I don't know the special holiness with the crumbs. Anyway, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't put it on the table. You're confusing your friend. You're making him a little crazy. What are you doing with a little interesting that you're taking these crumbs and piling them on the table? You shouldn't take a piece of bread and put it in front of your friend or in a big bowl of soup, right? Because people think it's disgusting, right? You take your piece of bread and put it in front, a bitten piece of bread and put it in front of him, or put it in the main serving bowl or in his serving bowl. Right? Not everyone is okay with that. This is one of the most discussed issues. Do you drink from a cup? Would you drink from someone else's cup? Right? So the halacha is you shouldn't drink from a cup and put it into your friend's hand because it's a constant fasha. Now, what's the constant fasha is there? Right? What do you have? Bacteria has the flu. You're gonna get the flu. You're gonna die. Is that what we're talking about? What if he doesn't have the flu? So, Mishnah talks about this. He brings 2 different explanations. Both of them relate to the fact that it's germs and it's dirty. The difference between them is how severe we're worried the germs are. According to the second opinion he brings, Rebelezer HaGadol, Savas Rebelezer HaGadol. I don't know who Rebelezer HaGadol is, maybe the Tana or Rebelezer. He was it's very careful not to drink from your friend's cup. Maybe he has a sickness in his body. And I think he means germs, a certain ruach, spirit, ayin sham. Now, this is going to be at odds with the halacha we're going to come up later, where the Gemara, where the one of the halachas later on says that if you want to drink from someone else's cup, just clean off the place where his mouth was, or wash it off with water. So we'll have to talk more about that in Ian to lean on. You shouldn't drink from a cup and leave it on the table. This is hard to understand, right? When you drink from a cup, where else are you going to put it? If you didn't finish the cup, you're not allowed to drink it at once. So you have to hold it in your hand the entire time until the shamash comes. Very strange halacha. You go into a meal, you shouldn't take. You don't want the food. They're serving, chicken on the bone, as they do at so many Shabbos dinners. I don't know why. It's maybe the worst meat meal there is, if you consider chicken meat. It's the worst chicken there is, the worst meat there is. A lot of fish that are better than that. You don't want it. Like me, they asked me, you want chicken on the bone? No. Yeah, anything else? Maybe I'll eat it. I'm hungry. Look at Chalko, we didn't know the shamash. Don't give it to the waiter. Shama yara darak l'kul b'suda. People are going to get angry while you're not eating our food. We don't like our food. So leave it by you. And then you don't eat it. And he'll come and take it afterwards. You go to someone's house, you can't give food from the table to his son or to his servant. It's not your food, right? That's the point. The point is, when you go to someone else's house, it doesn't belong to you, right? To the point that a lot of poskim say on the first night of Pesach, you have to be makna the matzah. It's better to have your own matzah. If you have the matzah from the Levites, you don't really own it. And really, the Gemara in Sukkah says you have to own the matzah in order to be yosef the mitzvah of matzah. So it's clear that you don't have bailus over the food at the table. You have reshus. You have permission to eat the food, but you can't give it to someone else. Chaf. And you can't take it home also. This is a Gemara in Sanhedrin. People, Nikiya Das, people with clean minds in Yerushalayim, big tzaddikim, they wouldn't sit at a meal unless they were sitting with other Talmidei Chachamim. It's degrading for Talmid Chacham to sit next to a regular guy. Imagine the Rosh Hashiva or the big rabbi, the Gadol Ador. He goes to a wedding and he's sitting next to the businessman, the businessman who's on his phone all day, and he's purchasing stocks, he's trading stocks, he's trading real estate. Imagine sitting next to him. This happens all the time. What do you mean, the Gvirim sit next to the when the Rosh Hashivas come to America, who do you think they sit next to? The other Rosh Hashivas were coming to America to collect money. They're all sitting next to these Amaratim. The Shamish, the waiter, he's waiting on two people. We learned this last halacha that he can eat with them. He can eat bread with them in order to mechayah them in a zimun. Apparently that's the halacha. If eating with three people, they already have a zimun. He doesn't have to join. Now, I'm not clear if the Gemara says the reason is because of Mechayev them in a zimun. To me, it doesn't make any sense. Because a zimun is not a chiyuv. If you ate with three people, make a zimun. But a person's allowed to take your own food, especially he's a shamash. He's getting paid to be a butler or a waiter. He's getting paid, or it's his job in the house to do that. He can just eat for free. Hard for me to believe. Just Mechayev someone in zimun, hard for me to believe that's the reason. If it says in the Gemara, it says it. But if not, not. Chav Beis, Achar Shasis, Finisha Yaim Makos, L'Shtias Chavercha. You drank, and there's still wine left, and someone else wants to drink from it. You should clean off the place where the person's mouth was, because it's disgusting to drink from his mouth. But don't pour out wine because it's expensive wine. If it's just a cup of water, you want to drink from your friend's cup of water, so just pour a little water over where his mouth was, and that cleans it off. This is at odds, obviously, with the halacha before. We said it's a cause of fashion, so drink someone else's cup. So we'll have to discuss that. The Rama says, this is a Gemara, I think. After all your eatings, you should eat salt. When you're finished drinking, you should drink water. Moshe is bar, come on, Simon, Kofayin 10, 179. Nearly, it's only talking about if you had bread or foods that were without salt. It was tasteless. You had drinks that were without water. I mean, most drinks have at least a little water in them. Avolav hachi leka lamecha. Shvei nogin shelo yizar b'achilas melech shias mayim achar asuda mitam shenis bar. Most foods at the meal have salt in them, and most drinks have water in them. So you already did that. There's no reason to be careful to have salt and water at the end of your meal. Um, I mean, I think the Gemara knew that when it was saying that most foods have water, have salt in them, and most drinks have water. So, curious what kind of halacha this is that you should have salt after your meal. Water I can understand, and your meal, but salt I don't understand. That's the conclusion of today's year. Stay tuned for Ian Delino. A lot to discuss. What exactly is Simon talking about? Um, I really want to know, and I'll tell you my thoughts, possible thoughts. I can't guarantee that's the shot. Ian Delino, I'm coming up next.